Hey everybody, Tekking101 here, and for this entire month of June, I'm going to be doing discussion videos revolving around the Kurosaki family. Yes, that's correct. Now, why did I pick June to talk about it? I don't really know. I just kind of picked it out of a hat, you know, I just felt like doing it. I don't really think the month of June has any real relevance here.
Mommy? Please get up, Mommy! Let's go home, Mommy!
The fuck are you?
I'm Grant Fisher. I killed your mother, and now I'm gonna squeeze the life out of your sisters before I claw out their goddamn eyes and devour them.
I don't think so. Well, anyway, yeah, I already did a Ichigo discussion video, just one in general, last year. Since then, I've also done a discussion video on Ichigo's various powers, his hollow powers, his Quincy powers, his powers in general. Like, we're done talking about Ichigo for a while. I mean, I made 4 discussion videos about him, so unless he decides to go bonkai in the next few chapters, I'm not making another video about God fucking damn it! Okay, fine. We'll probably have an Ichigo bonkai discussion at some point this month, too, when he reveals his new one. I already did an Isshin video last week, so for this video, let's focus on 2 members of the Kurosaki family that, from, you know, one perspective, aren't really that relevant, don't really do much or contribute really to the series at all, but if you really sit down and think about it, they really should. I am, of course, referring to Ichigo's 2 younger sisters, Karin and Yuzu Kurosaki. Now, before I actually get into talking about them, I should bring up just how weird it is that Ichigo, as the main character, has siblings that aren't really referenced at all, or very rarely by Kubo. They certainly don't play like a major role in the plot as much as they should, and the reason that's weird is just look at other series that run in Shonen Jump that are like in the same genre as Bleach, you know, like the same demographic, the same kind of like battle-oriented manga. Whenever you have a main character and that main character has a brother or a sister, they're usually going to be relevant at least in one part of the story, if not the entire story, but they'll at least have like 1 or 2 arcs where they have some sort of relevance. Look at Sasuke in Naruto, Itachi, huge deal. Look at Ace in One Piece. Now I know Ace is not Luffy's biological brother, but they've exchanged sake cups. They're essentially brothers. Sabo as well. They play really relevant roles in their series, or even at least specific arcs. But okay, we have Ichigo, main character of Bleach. He has 2 siblings, and it's not like they're step-siblings, it's not like they have different parents or something. Ichigo was born to Isshin and Masaki, which is where he gained a majority of his powers. Yuzu and Karin were both born to Isshin and Masaki, so that means they or at least should have at least one or some or all of those kind of powers. But it's never really brought up, and I can think of a few reasons for that, but let's just go through a quick overview of the stuff that Yuzu and Karin have done in the series up to this point. Alright, so hands down, the one arc where Yuzu and Karin were spotlighted the most was the first arc in the series, the Substitute arc. And this makes sense because it was the arc where Kubo was just starting out spotlighting all these characters. I don't know if Kubo intended to push Karin and Yuzu to the side throughout the series like he did, or maybe he was introducing them with a more grander scheme. But anyway, they were introduced as Ichigo's younger sisters. They were both the same age. They were both 11 years old, although Karin does act a little bit more mature at this point. Yeah, Karin is kind of like the tomboyish character who also has the ability to see spirits. Yuzu, despite being the same age as Karin, can't really see spirits at all at this point. And Yuzu is sort of taking over the role of the housekeeper since Masaki died when they were very young. Masaki's the one that kind of does all the cleaning and cooking, and she's kind of taken on her own role here, even though she doesn't have the same spiritual awareness as Karin and Ichigo at this point. In fact, it was because of Ichigo's sisters being in peril which expedited his decision to become a Shinigami. Rukia shows up at Ichigo's house, and while she's upstairs explaining to him the whole gist about the Soul Society, and many tables were flipped in the process, downstairs, fucking Fishbone D decides to attack the Kurosaki clinic, so Karin is being gripped by Fishbone D and, like, getting the life choked out of her, and Rukia is trying, you know, that's the decision that decided, like, I don't care about Soul Society, I don't care about the decisions, I don't care if it might kill me, you know, give me the power, Soul Reapers, so I can save my sisters, and that's the whole, you know, reason why Ichigo decided to become a Shinigami to begin with, to protect his family. family. Next time they played a big part in an arc is during the Grand Fisher arc, when they went to go see Misaki's grave, and they were once again attacked by a Hollow, this time Grand Fisher, who was a much stronger Hollow than Fishbone D. Ichigo once again went to go save them. Ichigo got a little bit more banged up in the process, but managed to wound Grand Fisher to the point where he ran away. This arc also was very important in introducing the relevance of Misaki to begin with, and we'll be doing a discussion video about her. I'm thinking about maybe doing it on June 18th. Yeah, I think that's a good date to do a Misaki discussion video, so look forward to that. After the Grand Fisher incident, Yuzu doesn't really do much of anything for the rest of the Substitute arc, and in extension the rest of the series in general, but Karin does play one more important role whenever Bulbous G, the Hollow that attacked Shad, appears, you know, during when Ichigo and Uryu were having their Hollow fighting contest. The Hollow appears at her soccer game that she's playing with her other kids in the neighborhood, and Shad shows up, and that's how he awakens his Fullbring, you know, his right arm, and manages to punch out Bulbous G with the assistance of Karin, because at this point, I think Karin could see spirits way more clearly. Chad could only see them as kind of like a shimmering, you know, like space. Like, he could sort of tell where it was, but not really, and Karin could see it very clearly. So, I mean, it was a cool fight, because Kubo was showing, like, oh, okay, Karin has the spirit awareness pretty much on the par of Ichigo, to the point where she's, like, you know, seeing where Bulbous G's going, and helping Chad fight him, you know, she's the eyes, he's the brawn sort of thing. So that was a cool fight, I liked it. But after that scene, Karin doesn't really do much of anything throughout the rest of the Substitute arc, or the Soul Society arc. I should bring up that there are a lot of anime-only episodes which feature them, and there's some side arcs there, like on the sides of chapters, you know, Kubo puts in at the end on the, if you're reading the volumes, you know what I'm talking about. At the end of the chapters, there's like a little, you know, snippet of like one-panel comics, you know, featuring them. The whole Don Kanonji showing up, and, you know, Karin becoming Karakura Red, and Yuzu Karakura Pink, and all that stuff. I believe that does happen in the manga, but it's only in those one-panel things, you know, the whole story behind it, and the cat, and the giant Hollow, that, like, centipede that attacks everybody, and the lion, you know, soul, ghost, cat thing, whatever the fuck that shit was. That all is anime. And it also explains that Yuzu can't see spirits too well. I don't know if there's any manga material for that explains that Yuzu's not that spiritually aware as Karin. It might just be a throwaway line, but it's never touched upon as much as the anime touches upon it with, I think it was like episode 33 and 50 were the two episodes during the Soul Society arc that focused on them. During the Arrancar arc, there was a pretty interesting scene where Karin confronts and interrogates Ichigo about being a Shinigami, to which Ichigo basically just responds with, "No, Karin, I'm not a Shinigami. What'd you think about that?" Then he immediately turns into a Shinigami to go confront Ukiura and Yami, to which Karin's just standing there just like, the fuck? And it was an interesting scene, but it just doesn't go anywhere. There's that anime-only episode where Karin and Toshiro sort of have like a friendship, romantic relationship going on there, so many fan fictions were started that day. But beyond that, we get into the whole Hueco Mundo fake Karakura shit, and the only time they were mentioned there, I believe, is after Ichigo arrived in the Soul Society where Karakura Town was, when he's in his final Getsuga Tensho form. The first thing he does is immediately sense to see if Karin and Yuzu are okay, and he confirmed that they're a far distance away from the battle, and he, you know, bitch palms Aizen into the mountains so they're not injured or his friends are injured, and then they start their fight. That's pretty much it. During the Fullbringer arc, which is the part that I want to discuss here the most because they really don't appear that much in the final arc at all, but during the Fullbringer arc, you had this scene where, you know, it seemed like Kubo wanted to restart the series, or he was going back to his roots. Reading the first few chapters of the Fullbringer arc, you really get that impression, and so we get to see, you know, Karin and Yuzu, they're now 13, they have their new, you know, designs and their new outfits. They're going into, I think they're going into junior high. And Karin is stated at this point to basically have a very high, you know, spiritual high spec in the family. You know, so basically Karin at the age of 13 is basically on the same level that Ichigo was at age 15. You know, Ichigo at 15 could see spirits and everything, and that was basically Karin at that point. Yuzu, not really much from Yuzu, but there was a really awesome scene where Karin, for a little while anyway, was looking like she might be the next Shinigami in the Kurosaki family, you know, and going along with Kubo trying to start over and restart the series, you know, okay, Ichigo doesn't have his powers anymore, so how awesome would it have been if we find out that Karin has Shinigami powers, which she does, I mean, Ichigo is considered a purebred Shinigami because his dad's a Shinigami, so by that logic, Yuzu and Karin would have that same title, so it turns out Karin has Shinigami powers that she awakens somehow, and then Ichigo takes the role that Rukia took at the beginning of the series and teaches her how to use it. Now, I'm not talking about pushing Karin to become the new main character and Ichigo just a side character. You could still write it in with Ichigo maybe having his powers being returned to him and him still being the main character and all the shit happening with the Quincy's and the Vandenreich. I'm just saying that now you have Karin, a character that can also help him. A character that's kind of like Ichigo's, sidekick, and he's training her about the shit. And, maybe she fights against one of the Quincy's and wins. Maybe make the Fullbring arc more focused on her rather than Ichigo. I mean, that's, Ichigo's still the main character, but Karin is coming into her own and becoming part of the main cast as well. What's wrong with that? I thought that was a pretty cool idea. But no, we just get the scene with Karin approaching Uehara, and she was basically buying a bunch of really cheap products from Uehara. Like, hey, this is, Spiriticon, you spray it and the ghosts can't get through when you're taking a shit on the toilet or something like that, that's it, she just buys a bunch of household cleaners from Uehara and they talk about how they're worried about Ichigo and whatever, and that's it, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's the whole mindfuck shit with Tsukishima, but she was being manipulated by Tsukishima in that aspect, so, that's more just, Tsukishima's power messing with Ichigo, not really focusing on Karin or Yuzu there. And that really pisses me off, because that makes me feel like, the only reason Kubo focused on Karin in the beginning stages of the Fullbring arc is to just have it more of a mindfuck whenever Tsukishima manipulates them. Not really so much for Karin or Yuzu's development, more so just to set it up from whenever Tsukishima does his Book of the End. That's maybe something that was going there. I don't agree with that. And once again, like I said in the final arc, really nothing to really talk about there. They show up like twice. That's it. They show up twice, and they don't say anything really relevant. They're just hanging out in the Kurosaki clinic. That's all. Actually, wait a second. I just realized something. So, the few times we get to see Yuzu and Karin during the final arc, they're in the Kurosaki clinic, and Isshin is there, But now Isshin is in the Soul Palace, and so is Ichigo. So, as well as Ryukin and Uehara, they're gone too. So, who's left in the world of the living to watch after Karin and Yuzu while all this shit's going down?
Okay, kids, I told your dad I'd watch you while he's on his, important business trip, so just stay down here in the secret bunker and you'll be fine.
Why do we have to stay down here in the bunker to begin with?
Oh, because the Soul King died and it's very possible that the entire universe could collapse on its axis. Oh, I mean, rapists. Yeah, there's rapists upstairs.
You're not very good at consoling children, are you, Mr. Tessai?
Oh, are you serious? I've been watching kids for 10 years now.
Maybe you want to rephrase that?
Not at all! Ryu and Jinta are under my watchful eye constantly. I'm practically their parent. He beats me up constantly. Shut the fuck up, Jinta! Go back to bed! Now, who wants to play Candyland?
We're a little bit too old for that. I do!
Yay, Candyland.
So now moving on to a little bit more about theories revolving around Yuzu and Karin, about what powers they might exhibit in the future. Well, obviously, their dad's a Shinigami, mom's a Quincy. So they have those powers in them. Remember, Karin and Yuzu, they're still pretty young. They're both 13 years old, which is younger than what Ichigo was before he awoke in his Shinigami powers, and he could only awoke his Shinigami powers with the help of Rukia's. Rukia gave him her powers, and that kind of just jolted his true Shinigami powers awake. So maybe Ichigo would have awakened his own Shinigami powers on his own, but it might have taken a lot longer. It might have been like when he was 16, 17, 18, it might have been a lot longer before he would have awoken his Shinigami and Hollow powers, which are the same thing, so it might just be a case of Karin and Yuzu just aren't old enough yet to awaken their powers yet, or they didn't have something that jolted them awake. Now, would they have Hollow powers? Because that's something that always gets brought up, because the reason for this, and the reason I'm questioning it, is because you have Isshin, who used his Shinigami powers to keep the Hollow in Masaki at bay. Okay, Isshin's Shinigami powers were kind of bonded to the Hollow inside Masaki. But after Masaki gave birth to Ichigo, that tie sort of transferred to Ichigo, where Isshin's Shinigami powers was keeping Ichigo's hollow powers at bay. And then during the Soul Society arc, when his hollow, became coming into its own and, taking over Ichigo more frequently, that's when Isshin's powers could no longer suppress it, and the link snapped. Alright? So it's almost as if the hollow powers that were in Masaki directly transferred to Ichigo because he was the firstborn. And because of the hollow, that also mixed together Shinigami powers into something different, Shinigami hollow powers, and then just the Quincy powers he received from his mom. So I'm a little bit dubious in saying that Karin and Yuzu would have hollow abilities, but they most certainly have Shinigami and Quincy powers, just based on genetics. Just look at it kind of like a spiritual Punnett square, sorry. Now, there's a few ways you can look at this. You can look at it like, okay, they do have Shinigami and Quincy powers, and they're going to be divided between siblings. Like, Karin receives the Shinigami powers from her dad, which makes sense just given her personality. She's always been a little bit more tomboyish and stuff like that, and she has Isshin's hair. And then Yuzu receives all the Quincy powers from her mom. Same deal, Yuzu has the same colored hair as her mom, and she's kind of the homemaker of the family. So yeah, you can look at it like that, like Karin really has no talent for Quincy powers, but just Shinigami, and Yuzu vice versa with Quincy powers. I would like that. I would like that idea of, Karin being 100% like the new Shinigami, along with Ichigo, or after Ichigo's time, and, after she becomes a little bit older, and then Yuzu maybe learning about Quincy techniques from Uryu, or the Ishida family. I would like that. I would really like that. I think it gets a little bit more too complicated if you're incorporating both of them into them, like, both Yuzu and Karin are going to have Shinigami and Quincy powers melded into one and sort of turn out to be like Ichigo. I still think that because Ichigo was the firstborn, he received the bulk of the powers and all this craziness jumbled up inside of him, which makes him like a completely new entity. It wouldn't make much sense for them to really show up now in the final arc at all, doing anything, because, Kubo clearly he's not going down that path with them. It's just, that's pretty obvious. The only way I could see this going down, though, is if at the end of the arc, the last chapter of the series, or one of the last chapters of the series, we have, a time jump into the future where Ichigo is a lot older, and, he's a Shinigami doing what he's doing. Maybe he's married to whoever you want Ichigo to be married to. Yeah. And then you see Yuzu and Karin maybe in their late teens, and they have these respective powers, and they're just shown to have them, like, oh, Ichigo's like, oh yes, Uryu's teaching Yuzu how to be a Quincy, and, Dad's teaching, Karin how to be a Shinigami or something like that. That's the only way I could see this going down with them. They're certainly not going to be relevant in the series, and that's sad. That's really sad. I mean, the train already left the station on that one. If they were going to play a major role in the series, it would have happened already, not in the final, arc here, at the ending of the final arc. That's just not how it was going to go down. But yeah, that's just my opinion on the characters. What do you guys think? Do you think they'll play a role in the final arc? Do you think, Yuha is going to go up all of a sudden? I mean, the whole deal about, Yuha and Ichigo is that he's the father of all Quincy's, and Ichigo has his blood flowing in him. By that logic, Yuzu and Karin have Quincy blood too. Maybe that's going to go somewhere. I don't know. Or do you think they're just going to end the series without really showing much relevance from them at all? I've been saying relevance a lot in this review. I apologize for that. I need to think of more clever word choices. But yeah, go ahead. What do you guys think? Comment below. And also, I should guess that Masaki's pretty happy, though, the way everything turned out, though. I'm sure she's looking down up there, in super heaven, not Soul Society, not the Soul Palace. She's in super heaven, along with every other character that died in the series and didn't go to the Soul Society for whatever reason. Super heaven!
Aw, I think my kids are gonna be okay. What do you think?
Your son turned into a rage monster, ripped off my limbs, and then blasted the equivalent of a small nuclear device at my face.
I don't know why you're talking to me.